One. All right, we're live. And this, of course, will be our chat with patrons for the month of July. I waited till the last day of July to get this one in. Typically wait till the end of the month, but I barely got this one in here at the last minute. Patrons for the month of July. I waited till the last day of July. The stream preview here. Let me mute all my audio here. Of course, I'm already joined by Big Pod.
Hello.
Yep. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So
Hello.
What have you been up to, Big Pod?
Nothing really, just learning stuff, doing stuff for school that were left over, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm. And what distro you're running these days?
Still Arch.
Still Arch, okay.
But I'm trying to understand Gentoo.
Yeah. Gentoo is a different kind of animal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good for some folks. People often ask, why I don't run Gentoo, especially now that I've got, this machine with a thread ripper. The compile times wouldn't be that bad. It's just, even though the compile times wouldn't be that bad, I'm not that kind of user where I need to custom build each piece of software. Just give me everything compiled in the binary, all the use flags. Give me the big kernel, I'm that Arch user. I mean, that's why Arch fits me. It's because they do everything that I want to do anyway. Just give me, everything with it.
Same for me.
Yeah.
And actually, I can get the compile times on my system to 0 because Gentoo actually has the ability to have binary files to be in a repository style. Mm-hmm. But if for any other reason they have Firefox, I believe they have in binary form precompiled on the repositories.
Right. And there's a few distros out there that give you the option. If you want to compile, you can. If you want to use pre-built binaries, you can.
Arch is in some ways that.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the AUR, of course, is compiled.
AUR, you need to make a package yourself.
Yeah. Now there are some pre-built binaries in the AUR too, but most of the AUR is.
Yeah. They are binary packages, but still you need to make a package out of it, and where it needs to go, it still needs to be done.
Right.
It still takes hell of a long time. Hi.
Hey, George, is that you?
Yep.
Okay. Great.
I don't know if you can hear me properly because I'm in my car and
okay.
Speaking through my phone.
Yeah, your audio is a little low, but it's not horrible. If you could raise the audio level a little bit, that'd be great. But if not, we can hear you.
Unfortunately, I don't know if I can control it. I'm on a mobile phone.
Yeah, not a problem. Like I said, it's not that bad. So are you driving or you're riding in a? Okay, you're driving in a car.
I'm driving.
Be careful. It's not the first person we've had join us on one of these driving, though. Chris loves to do that. Chris Kelling, when he joins us, he's almost always driving when he joins these things.
I'm only on a very, very short drive from work to home.
Mm-hmm.
So about 3 to 5 minutes at most.
Yeah. So what distro are you running? Or are you running Linux?
Yeah, for work, I always run Red Hat, but I tried to switch to Arch yesterday, and it gave me a lot of trouble installing Oracle database. I mean, it's really, really hard to set up the dependencies and link the proper libraries. I haven't managed it yet.
Yeah, that probably could be a problem. Oracle database. Yeah. It's specifically meant to be run on a Red Hat based distro, since even Oracle's own is.
Actually, I can pretty easily install it in all Debian distros I've tried. I mean, in Ubuntu, in pure Debian, Mint, but Arch is giving me a very, very hard time.
Yeah, let me just check it out a little bit.
Well, that's
I've tried many things.
That's famous last words, though. Arch is giving me a really hard time. We've all said that at some point.
I must admit that about anything, everything besides the Oracle database, I don't really see any difference because I'm always running my own kernel, my own configuration of the
Right.
desktop, so it's kind of the same thing. Besides Pacman,
Yeah.
Pacman versus Aptitude,
Well,
and to be honest, I like them both.
yeah. Yeah. And both me and Big Pod like Arch. Of course, you mentioned you use Red Hat occasionally. Big Pod is a big fan of Fedora, so if you ever need Fedora help, I know he loves.
Yeah,
Fedora.
it's quite okay distro.
Yeah. Every time I say
yeah,
that, Big Pod rolls his eyes like, what?
I'm more of a fan of Silverblue, but yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I see. Never actually installed Fedora, ever.
Really? It's actually a pretty good distro as far as like a desktop distro. Typically, I find things just work with Fedora.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Even NVIDIA drivers are really
NVIDIA drivers and NVENC and all that. You need to enable the RPM Fusion repos, some of the third party. But other than that, everything, I typically find things just work in
distro, in my opinion. And all stuff, like advanced stuff, don't seem to work very well nowadays.
Yeah.
I see.
Also, Ubuntu, in some way, like the your standard editions of Ubuntu, seem to be a little too minimal, really, for most desktop users. Like they try to keep these ISOs like at a gig or under, and especially when you're doing like a desktop like GNOME, you can't put very many software packages on that ISO if you're sticking to like that gig or that that 1 gig limit. So.
Oh, so they have a limit, huh?
They don't have a hard limit. Used to Ubuntu just a couple of years ago, they were trying to keep the ISOs under, was it 800 megs? They were trying to keep it CD size so they could always fit it on a CD. And finally, they realized they couldn't do that anymore. It just got to the point they couldn't make the ISO that small, so they bumped it up and said we'd make it a gig or a little bigger if we need to. But they still, they don't make them. They're not bloated. They're not bloated in any way. So you typically do have to install a bunch of stuff on Ubuntu really to make it work. Not a bunch of stuff, but you're going to have to install a few things to make it work.
But to be honest, I've tried Ubuntu server on my laptop. It was pretty decent.
Yeah, server is great. Ubuntu server.
Yeah.
Ubuntu server is fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. Haven't tried any real desktop Ubuntu like Kubuntu, Xubuntu, or whatever till now, but I don't know. I never considered them minimal, to be honest. I always thought of Ubuntu as a bloated distro.
Well, a lot of people. Well, it depends on what kind of what you're talking about with bloat. If you're talking about disk space, like install size, Ubuntu's kind of on the other end of the spectrum. They're not really bloated. Things like SUSE, we call bloated. Some of the ones that
SUSE can install a long time, especially if you go for net install.
Yeah. The people that call Ubuntu bloated, sometimes I wonder if they've ever even installed Ubuntu. I think they hear people call it bloated and then they just repeat. Kind of like the people that hate on systemd for no reason. They just parrot what they heard somebody else say. So.
On the opposite side of that, I actually love systemd.
I do too.
It makes my life easier.
Yeah.
I'm one of the two, I guess. I don't know.
I hear that all the time from sysadmins that systemd is godsend. That
it is.
That they only trust systemd with actual server shutdowns, especially automatic ones, because a lot of the others lose data if they're not saved by the program itself. That they don't do proper shutdowns of the programs.
Yeah.
There is a way to manually call fsync to sync all the files that are in the buffer and to be written, but systemd automates that.
Systemd automatically properly shuts down every application. That's why sometimes it takes so much time to shut down, because it sends it command to properly shut down it, and if it's doing something, it will wait for it to finish work and properly shut down.
Of course, now we got to get into the talk of bloat. We were talking about things that are bloated. Now, to be fair, systemd is bloated. If you're talking about lines of code, it's over 1 million lines of code, where something like run it in void is less than 1,000 lines of code, I think. But does systemd work or not? Yes, it does.
Yes,
does it work? Does it do things really well? Yes, it does.
Yes.
So I don't mind bloat when it's needed. Like if it gives me the features I need, I'll take the bloat. It's when it adds unnecessary features that, I would say that's bloat.
And many times you'll hear that sometimes you can do less with more lines of code, or better with more lines of code than with less code.
Right.
You can implement a feature a lot better with more code that is a lot more compatible, a lot more optimized, all that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I say it all the time too when we talk about these people that go on and on about bloat, and I do sometimes. But if we really want to talk about a bloated piece of software, the Linux kernel is bloat. I mean, it is very bloated. So much, in fact, that me and Big Pod, before we started streaming here, were talking about the news that Linus Torvalds is preparing to wave goodbye to Linux floppy drives. They're, I guess the era of floppy drives is over. They don't need to support some of what they were doing with some of the legacy stuff in the kernel with floppy drives. So, uh-oh, we've got some audio issues. All right, we had some audio issues there, George. We missed what you said there.
Sorry. It's because of a poor signal.
No. Oh. Yeah, you're still cutting out on us. I'm assuming it's a connection problem.
Yeah.
Driving around with your phone. You may have hit a tunnel or something. Okay, so Big Pod, I think we lost George for a minute.
Yeah.
I think he's in some kind of dead zone. So
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute you for a bit, George. We're getting some bad feedback.
But probably the most bloated of all distros, like in install size versus what it gives, is Arch. It's everything is like the biggest version it can be.
Exactly. And people, here's another thing. When over the years, I've heard the argument a million times that Ubuntu is bloat, and maybe it could trim down a little bit, but the Arch fanboys don't realize everything about Arch is bloat. Every package you install with Arch, it's the biggest possible version of that package you could get. Like it's
when I was doing research on making FFmpeg with NVENC work on Ubuntu, I was looking at how Arch builds their own FFmpeg with NVENC.
Yep.
Basically, they add every flag possible to FFmpeg. Mm-hmm. Every flag.
Yep.
There isn't a flag they don't give it. And all the dependencies, everything will be added. Basically, really everything. Yep. I was like, okay.
Well, that's why Arch typically works, though, and why
everything works.
Right. Like in Ubuntu, some of the more recent versions of Ubuntu, they didn't compile FFmpeg with NVENC.
That's because FFmpeg guys used to have up until 1804. Let's just use Ubuntu as a timeline. Up until right after 1804, they split the repositories for FFmpeg and NVENC encoder. They had their own implementation for NVENC. So it actually ran okay with NVIDIA graphics card. So they used to have it in the same repository, be automatically rolled in. So now then they split the repositories to two separate projects, and that's why you don't see it in main FFmpeg. They said it's supposed to be more reliable and basically work better.
Right.
FFmpeg work better, which truth be told, I haven't seen that even on AMD hardware, AMD graphics card hardware, which I have on my old desktop. And when they did that, no one actually that builds that themselves. Both of them you must build it themselves, because that's why Debian Debian doesn't build it, and for effect, Ubuntu doesn't build it.
Yeah.
It's just a cause and effect reaction from the removal of the NVENC encoder. That's why Popey made his snap, which works pretty great, and I would recommend everyone, if you're using on Ubuntu OBS, use Popey's snap, because it's a lot easier than trying to set up FFmpeg to work with NVENC, because it's.
I've installed several distros. Yeah, on my main production machine. Other than the Arch-based distros and some of the older Ubuntu distros, like older than about a year ago,
1804 and less,
and Fedora gets it right.
Fedora works great for that.
But most everything else, getting OBS and FFmpeg and all that working, or even things like the Jack server, if you want to do the Jack audio server and things like that, it's a nightmare. Yeah, it is.
By the end of my testing, I could get FFmpeg working with NVENC, but not OBS. It's like really weird how they do things, and it's all depending on how you build OBS, how you build FFmpeg, how you build NVENC, their implementation of NVENC. Everything you must build exactly to the same specification, everything to the exact place, and then it might work together. That's why I leave it to the snap from on Ubuntu, or to the implementation of the right implementation. It's done by either Arch or Fedora. And on Arch it works great. They add it by default for everyone.
Yeah. And people often ask, what's the point of Arch? Because people hate the install process. Well, there's really a couple of main points to Arch why people who install Arch, if they go through the trouble of going through the command line install, typically just love it. Things typically just work, and you can find pretty much all the software you want to run.
Yeah.
Either in the repos or in the AUR, or with snaps, flatpaks, app images, all that works too. So I've never found a package that I wanted to install on my system that I couldn't find some kind of format that ran on Arch. You know, I rarely had to go and like build something from source for Arch.
I do it, but I do it because I'm me.
Yeah.
Because I want my own implementation outlet.
Or when you do really stable distros like Debian, for example, it is, especially now the new Debian just came out, but give it about 6 months from now.
It's already a year old. Old. My wireless card for Debian in Debian didn't work because my Wi-Fi card is I believe a bit more than a year old. Actual module, it isn't in the Debian, where it is on Arch, Ubuntu.
Yeah.
You know why? Because it came with 5.2. It was enrolled in kernel. So Debian guys just didn't want to include it in their own distro. It's for a Realtek wireless card, and
I've heard other people complain about the Realteks too.
Didn't want to put it in themselves, even though it was requested a couple of times. No, they didn't want to put it in Debian 10.
Now, is that a free driver, or is that?
I believe it's free driver, I believe it's free driver. But
you might find it in the SID repository. Have you thought about?
Yeah, at the end I just used cable, but it is automatically as a part of Arch, Ubuntu, Fedora. Everything I tried has it, just Debian doesn't. And now it has been included in 5.2 kernel.
Okay. Yeah, I was checking out some of the latest news in the Linux world that I haven't commented on, just checking things out. This story was going around about a week ago, and people were asking me about Evil Gnome, the Linux malware. And people were asking me, hey, man, are you going to talk about it? You going to do a show about it? You going to talk about it on Taking Into Account, which I did Taking Into Account last Thursday. And I believe the story was already out then, and I didn't include that story, and I didn't include that story for a reason. I didn't think it was worthy.
It isn't worthy. It isn't even close to worthy. It's a stupid story. Basically, some guys accidentally uploaded their own code for a GNOME extension based virus, or more, it's actually a Trojan horse, not a virus.
No.
Let's be clear. And what it does, it basically it does a whole range of crap to spy on you, nothing else. It is you have to be an idiot to run a shell script that supposedly installs a binary extension for you.
Yeah.
And
most people would not run a shell script.
Yeah. First of all, most people who would know how to extend their GNOME desktop wouldn't run it wouldn't run it as a shell, because they will go to GNOME extensions website and just click on the button to install the extension, because they have that connector between their browser and GNOME extensions part. That's all they will do. And that is just, in my opinion, this idiotic thing to ever think that someone would fall for that. Maybe someone who doesn't really know anything, but even then,
well, no, because
that person would.
Because I was thinking about that too. What if, like, you put, an elderly relative on, like your grandmother, you put her on one of these GNOME desktops, and she came across this. If she doesn't know much about computers, why would she be going and grabbing something off of something like GitHub or GitLab? She wouldn't even know how to execute that shell script. Even if it did execute, it probably needs root permission. Would she even know her root password?
No.
Like these kinds of users, they wouldn't know any of this stuff, right? And people like us that would know it, we would never run some random shells. Right.
Yeah. You need to go to run these shells. You need to go to terminal, do / and then the name of the
right.
It's actually like so hard to do it.
Oh, you got to make it executable first. We didn't even discuss that. You have to change permissions.
Technically, you could distribute it already executable if you did it the right way. It is possible, but still, you have to go through so many hoops to get it running.
Right.
The only way it would be if it would actually be a part of some other program.
Right.
But at this stage, it was basically a shell script masquerading as an extension.
No.
Then a shell script masquerading as installer for extension, even worse.
So I was getting all kinds of messages this past week about this evil GNOME thing, and I know a lot of folks were worried. They thought it was serious, and my response was kind of I don't even want to comment on it because it's not that big of a deal, and some people were confused about that. It wasn't a big deal because the print stories were way overblown. And then I didn't even want to mention
overblown.
Yeah. And then I didn't want to mention it on camera. It's because like 100 different YouTubers within a couple of days are starting making videos about it. And some of those videos were quite a bit over the top. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let those guys run with that. I'm going to leave it alone.
It is actually same stupidity as how people overblown that VLC hack or VLC security problem, which was actually a security problem in an old version of VLC, which ran the bugged version of an extension for MKV demaxing.
Right. Yeah, so the VLC story, what that is that can be traced back to basically one guy.
Yeah,
PC
and
gamer.
Even that guy who was supposedly security researcher ran an outdated version of VLC.
Now, I can understand why the story spread, VLC, has probably hundreds of millions of installs on all kinds of Windows machines, Linux machines. So when he published that story, I can understand why so many other news sites published their stories saying, oh my God, there's some kind of malware in VLC. And like, I get why everybody else ran with the story, but it was just the one guy. And, maybe we can't just take his word for it next time. Just when one guy says something, and then VLC quickly came out and said, no, this is wrong.
Yeah. And truth be told, if any self-respecting real, security researcher would be that he would probably first contact
them,
the video LAN,
right?
That's who makes VLC to actually tell them in private what is happening, so they can fix it before actually even trying to disclose it publicly.
Yeah. You don't put it out there in the public.
For so many bugs you will never hear, which were disclosed in private and even fixed before they even have any chance of being publicized.
Yeah.
And that's actually how we should do things, especially in security space. People who just disclose things, those are, in my opinion, crazy, stupid people who just want to create panic. It's the same as why, let's say, if there would be a nuclear bomb, they wouldn't tell right away that there, let's say in New Orleans is a nuclear bomb that threatens, or like it's threat of nuclear bomb. They wouldn't tell because more people would get killed by Russian panic than actual bomb, because that's what terror is all about.
Yeah.
Creating fear and panic, and not actual threat.
Yeah, in the chat we're getting the question: MPV or VLC? Depends on what you want to do. MPV is great for something really minimal and not bloated. You want something that just works with everything, VLC.
Yeah, I use VLC on my
VLC,
systems.
yeah.
I know it will work on everything. And
everything, Blu-ray and DVD and all your audio formats. But MPV is really nice if you're a more minimalist kind of person, if you like things like tiling window managers and you want as few packages installed on your system as possible. If you want to install VLC, though, if you're worried about having a bloated package on your system, install VLC as a snap. It works fine as a snap pack. That way, when you uninstall it, you get rid of
everything goes away.
Right, exactly.
It's self-contained package.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, one time I actually ran the whole system, everything I could as snaps. On Ubuntu, for a joke, I deleted everything that could be a snap and installed it as a snap. It actually ran okay. While it was size was a lot more, it worked pretty flawlessly.
And Total OS Today is in the chat. He's asking, is this the stable or the unstable show? So.
Hi guys again.
Hey George. Hey.
Hope you can hear me properly this time. I'm home.
Oh yeah.
Good.
Well, we're glad you made it. So
I did.
We were kind of worried about the drive. All of a sudden, the audio was.
I'm passing through some connection potential wells or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we could tell when you get into like a dead zone where you don't have connection, or you go into a tunnel. That's kind of what it was. We were getting this weird just feedback.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, happens.
All right. Yeah. So we were just discussing some of the crazier Linux security related stories in the last week that were kind of overblown. The VLC story, the Evil Gnome story. The Evil Gnome story, again, I didn't want to touch it. It's because people were connecting the Evil Gnome malware or whatever, the Trojan, with the GNOME desktop. And that was a bit unfair. I hate GNOME. I can't stand GNOME. I think GNOME is garbage as a desktop environment. But when you equate some third-party extension that has some malware in it with GNOME being bad, that's going a step too far.
No, it's unfair. I agree.
Yeah. Now, you should criticize GNOME about having a horrible file manager, and using over a gig of RAM on a cold boot. You can criticize them on that, but don't lump them in because some idiot, created this extension.
I read, I don't know, 3-4 months ago about a security hole in Vim.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? I mean,
yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
I can't blame the Vim guys, the Vim developers for that. I know it was their fault, finally, but it was patched. I mean, everything has security holes.
It does,
yeah. Every software will have a bug down the line.
It's just like anything else. You shouldn't just be installing any kind of plugin in Vim or anything else that's extensible, whatever text editor, whatever you use. You don't just go grab any extension and put it in, Use the stuff that, you trust.
And the same with ZSH and all my CSH plugins, etc., etc. I mean, or you can always read the source code. if you've got the time.
Yeah, even proprietary code, you can decompile it in some way.
Yes, it's hard. I don't know.
Depending on what kind of language is written, you can get pretty close to original source code, especially if it's something like C#, Java, something like that. You can get pretty close to original source code.
Yes, because their bytecode is kind of simplified. But when
and even if it's something like, for example, C++, if it isn't compiled like for operating system, it's mostly compiled to assembly. But if it is normal GCC compiled, you can get it back to quite original form, because even the GCC compiled is actually still an intermediate language of some sort. It isn't compiled to the machine language, because then the SOC, the shared object system wouldn't work correctly.
I see. I guess the same goes for every LLVM plugin and LLVM-based compiler.
LLVM is the same, just as GCC. Basically, every language basically goes into some intermediate code before it actually goes to machine. That's the ugly truth about programming.
Yes, I guess you could do that, but if you try to decompile a native library, I mean, you're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah, but
it's doable. But
you can everything can be decompiled into some way, decompiled into somewhat readable version. But how readable? That's the other question.
Especially in Java and C#, you can almost get your original code back. Unless you obfuscate it.
Yeah, and even obfuscation can be especially Java. Java, I know you can pretty easily. Websites exist for that.
Yeah, but I've tried it. I've tried deobfuscating, for example, decompiling, then deobfuscating some Java blobs, but never got a proper class out of it.
Actually,
use it. I could hack it, I could do some modifications and recompile it, but that's all. I mean, if you want to go deep, it's hard.
For example, Microsoft themselves have a decompiler for C# libraries. They even put it in Visual Studio. Basically,
and it's pretty good, actually.
When you pull down a library from their package repository for libraries for C#, you basically, if it is compiled and doesn't have the source code site listed like GitHub or something like that, you basically get a big window. Do you want to decompile it? And a huge legal disclaimer. You press yes, a couple of minutes later, you'll get whole source code.
Hey, Big Pod, you got a question in the chat. Funky Fedora says, do you think Vanilla Arch is secure like Fedora?
Vanilla Arch is somewhat secure, but it's okay. It's more what you do with it.
Right, I was about to say Fedora comes with like a firewall. I think it's enabled by default and all that. Where Arch,
SE Linux, the whole secure Linux thing, makes Fedora a lot more secure than Arch.
Right.
But Arch is more of a what you do with it.
Right. Because Arch is not really secure until you do something with it. Because of Vanilla Arch install, like the base install.
Guys, if I may, I must intersect that the whole Linux security thing begins with the kernel configuration. I mean, if you compile out AppArmor or say Linux or some mitigations, I mean, the distro is going to be pretty much naked. But if you enable all those things, and as you should configure your IP tables properly, you're okay. And never install stuff that you don't know where they came from or who wrote them or not repos, etc. The usual stuff.
Anyway, any distribution, any operating system, really, Mac, Windows, Linux, is as secure as its user is smart. If its user doesn't know what he's doing, clicks everything, any kind of security measure will fall sooner or later.
And it's all about the network. If the network's secure,
only security measure that can help against idiot user is no internet connection or no computer entirely.
Just take it away from them.
Yeah, that's
Just no,
those are
no keyboard for you.
ways you can absolutely secure against an idiot user.
Okay. We're not calling people idiot users
No,
today.
it's-
No, we're gonna put that disclaimer out
Yeah,
there.
I'm here just characterizing the worst user possible, basically.
Right. Okay.
The guy who clicks on every ad, who clicks on everything.
Yeah.
Those people will sooner or later get a
Right.
ride. Sooner or later, there's-
Download anything they
will be-
find on Facebook.
breached.
Yeah.
yeah,
I believe you're gonna be surprised of the number of old people using smartphones that click everything. Everything that says, click your phone has a virus. Download this. This
But,
cleaner and that cleaner.
yeah. Thankfully, I taught my dad that he comes to me with every time that pop up, and I just do. You press this button and close it.
Mm-hmm.
The same with my mother. The same thing. Since the day I bought her the smartphone.
Yeah, the other day I was watching one of these YouTubers that does the scam baiting, where they get these scam phone calls and then they just kind of troll them. They play along. They pretend like they're an elderly man or woman and lead them on for an hour or two before they realize they don't not getting any money, and then it's all just a joke.
Most ironic thing is when one of those put a Windows scammer, like the guy how calls from Microsoft, and he's all Microsoft, and they put him into Linux.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I've seen that. It's funny. There's this guy. How's he called? I mean, can't remember his name.
And I don't remember either. Those are like really funny.
That he does the TD presentations about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few of those channels out there if you find that stuff entertaining. It's funny too, because like even if you did this in real life, like if you ever have led one of these guys on, like you're gonna fall for the scam, and they you play with them for like an hour or whatever, and you just completely waste their time. They get so mad once they realize they've been had, because they're like, man, you wasted my time. I could have been scamming somebody else this whole time.
These people, like, I really applaud those guys who scam the scammers, because if nothing else, they maybe saved one or two people from being scammed.
Yeah. And I've still. You guys may have seen the crazy email that I posted a couple of weeks back.
Oh yeah, I did.
Right.
It was funny.
Yeah, I got one the other day that was almost as funny. It was similar, but a little bit different. I can't pull it up at the moment, but yeah, these guys, I can't believe people fall for this stuff.
Yeah.
Because they get all the information wrong. They tell you visited this site that you've never been on, or that we got through your Windows Defender or what. Okay, on Linux you got through. But they target. They just throw it out there. They probably spam millions of email addresses, and all it takes is a few elderly people really that don't know anything about computers to actually fall for it. Oh, they've got my banking account information, they got this, they got that, they're holding my computer hostage, I have to pay them the $500 or whatever it is they're trying to hold for ransom.
There are whole offices, and especially in India, with companies that all they do is scam Windows users.
Yeah, that's all. They're like,
it's a whole industry there.
Yeah,
I mean, they must be making a lot of money.
It must be. You remember years ago there was the Nigerian email scams.
I remember that.
Nigerian prince.
And there were actually guys in Nigeria making a lot of money running that scam.
And you still hear Nigerians joking with they are the prince who sent them an email.
Yeah. I've got $20 million sitting in a bank, but I can't get it out. But you can get it out if you give me $3,000. What?
I've actually seen a real letter, the real life letter version of that scam.
Huh.
What?
Yeah, people actually do a real life version of that scam. Basically, they send you but it's more like a more localized version. It was more localized version, basically, that a guy had died who was a long time relative of him, but you see, he needs to come to certain city, certain location to claim that thing, and before that he must send all the data and everything like that, so they can actually see if he's actually the real person. Basically the same scam, just on a localized.
I've seen variations of that one too. Yeah, where you're related to somebody that just died, or some of them even go to the point, where they have to run some kind of genealogy test on you to make sure that you're actually the relative. Just send us this money so we can run the test. Oh, okay.
I actually got a long time ago. I got an email from FBI.
Really?
Or at least that's what it said.
I didn't know the FBI emailed people, but okay.
Yeah, it's from assistant director, basically one of the second in commands.
Wow.
From one of the sections that it said that a pallet of money, the big pallet of money, like huge, I don't know how, I don't remember the exact dimensions, was sitting in a Dallas airport for me.
Wow.
Waiting, I need to pay authorization fees and come pick it up.
And the second in command at the FBI wanted to
assistant director of some division, so basically probably 6-7 in command was sending me an email.
And the money was sitting at the airport. Wow.
Yeah. That I sent it to myself. Basically that I sent it to myself, and because it was so much money, they couldn't actually send it over to my house because it was so much money.
But it wouldn't be at a secure location like at an FBI office or a police station, or it was at the airport. Yeah, just ask at the counter for Big Pot's money.
For the amount of
money. Hey, Murray, how you doing?
Very good.
All right.
Congratulations on 500.
Oh, thank you, Murray.
What, a year?
It's been a little less than 2 years. Yeah, I started October 2017. So yeah, this October will be 2 years.
It looks like they hit a sweet spot. I enjoyed the technical ones about curl and cheat and Googler stuff.
Oh yeah. That's good stuff too. Yeah, I still use Googler, although these days I'm starting to use SurfRaw a little more, because that particular tool allows me to use a bunch of different, search indexes. Like if I want to do Google for one search and then turn around and do DuckDuckGo for another, or whatever, YouTube, Wikipedia, the ArchWiki, got like 100 different search web indices you can do with SurfRaw.
Is that a command line tool?
It is. SurfRaw was written by Big Pot. Help me out. Who was the WikiLeaks guy? It wasn't
Julian Assange?
Yes, it was written by Julian Assange. So SurfRaw, yeah, just Google it.
This just got a whole lot more famous.
Yeah. What's going on, Chris? I think he's still trying to get Zoom working though. Yeah, because he's got that look of
what the hell is going on?
Yeah. That's the look I had the first time I installed Zoom too. So, and
you're muted, Chris.
Yeah, Chris. No audio, sir. Let me send him a message in the Zoom chat though.
You probably can't hear.
Press Alt A and it will unmute you.
Really?
Yeah.
Now you're teaching me some things, Big Pod. I didn't know that.
I learned that in Big Daddy Linux live show.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so let me message Chris to check his audio settings.
There we go. All right, I think I got it going.
Yeah, hey. Zoom is complicated. The first time you do it is because certainly Chris and myself, we have multiple audio and video inputs, and it seems like Zoom never picks the right ones.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Does this work? Nope.
You're good. Yeah, you're fine now. We've got audio, video, everything sounds just perfect.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah, so what's up, Chris?
Not much, man. How you guys doing? I thought I'd jump on here. I was hoping you guys were still going. I just got hung up this morning, but finally got free. So
no, that's cool.
Forward to joining you guys.
Yeah, and we were just talking a little bit about Linux and life and just contemplating, the meaning of the universe and
everything.
Yeah. So what are you running these days, Chris?
I got Arch right here on the outside studio, and then on inside I'm running Debian, and then on my laptop I got Fedora. So I got a little bit of everything, just so I can kind of
that's awesome.
Tinker.
Maybe my 3 favorite distros. That is that's great.
I love all
of
them.
You need.
I've jumped and did a whole bunch of distro hopping as soon as I jumped into Linux. And as painful as that was, I'm really happy for it because it really gave you that whole broad spectrum of pretty much what everything has, as far as Linux has to offer. So
And the distro hopping never stops. I can go ahead and warn you that now.
Yeah, I'm actually making a video about that when it comes to moving your home directory, segregating all your like custom configurations and stuff out on your home so you can distro hop quickly. Because that's one thing I'm like horrible with and something I'm still working on. But I think that's a huge thing is taking your home directory everywhere you go when you distro hop.
Yeah.
I'm using a Git repo, a Git bare repo. So
just save all your config files and it makes it a lot.
Just pull them down every time.
Exactly.
I normally don't have a separate home. I only have separate homes for every OS I have.
Version of Deepin OS has an interesting feature. You can back up your desktop configuration with one button to their cloud, and it's only how
much you trust their cloud. That's the question.
Exactly. Only for people in China at the moment, but it's going to be released everywhere eventually.
Yeah.
So that feature is basically backing up your dot files, your config files.
Yeah.
You could do that yourself with Git, and I think that would be a better choice because I'm sure Deepin is fine. I have no problems with Deepin, but still, why trust something like that with a third-party cloud service when you could just do it to your own GitHub or GitLab? Because it's just so easy to do. It's like a 30-second push to GitHub and boom, you're done.
Yeah, I mean, I left Windows. I left all the proprietary stuff when it comes to the cloud, and I could never see myself going back to that because it's such a hard thing. I'm still unwinding from how it gets your hooks in. It takes years to really get rid of all this stuff. I'm still got so much Google crap that I'm still just slowly removing myself from. Like this month, I'm removing myself from Google Notes and getting some of that, just slowly peeling away all this stuff so my Google account doesn't have anything but just junk in it. And it's a hard thing.
Yeah,
I've gotten rid of most of the proprietary software and proprietary services that I've been tied to. There were some that stuck with me longer than others. I was a Dropbox user. Forever. Until just recently, and I'd still be with them had they not did what they did with the Linux file system stuff, where we're only going to support unencrypted extend 4. That just seemed shady as hell.
Now they support more. Now they support
well, too late. I've moved on. Yeah, now they've changed their tune, but I've done moved on. So.
Like the thing that killed me with Dropbox and why I started moving everything to Nextcloud and spinning that up here at the house is mainly because they started pushing their paid plans. Like I referred probably no less than 50 to 60 people. So I have a huge amount of free storage with Dropbox. But at the same time, I mean, they went ahead and limited it all down to like 3 devices now, which if you have a phone, and I have multiple computers, I have my work computer, I have, I don't know, 3 or 4 computers here at the house that I actually use on a daily basis. And I'm like, it just is no good for me anymore. And that's why it just killed me with Dropbox was their device limitations that I think they did that at the end of last year.
Yeah, it was like November when they made all those changes. And that was, that was when I left them. I started exploring some other options. The good thing is there's plenty of good options out there. Things I'd never heard of before I started looking around. I checked out MegaSync, which is actually not bad. They offer pretty good free storage too. Spider Oak. Of course, I got my own Nextcloud server I set up and played with. So
I use Backblaze for my encrypted cloud storage because you can actually encrypt all your stuff here. Like my Nextcloud server, I just kind of back all of it up. I think it's the B2B, so it's not quite the personal plan, but it works out to about $3 or $4 a month. And it encrypts everything before it sends it over to the cloud service, and then it just sits on their cloud-based services. So if I ever need to restore anything, I can. But at the same time, I know nobody can go right into Backblaze and then pull my files without them being all encrypted, which is no good for them. So
only thing I use cloud is I use it for school stuff. So for that, I don't really care what it goes to. I just drop it onto OneDrive and just there it is, because I had a lot of links already from professors, because in school they use OneDrive, and I just I had all that collected as shares, so I just put school stuff on there. Who cares? If it gets all leaked, someone will read my essays. Who cares? They will have a good laugh because they are comedy.
And I didn't mention OneDrive, but unfortunately, I too am a OneDrive user at work. It's all Microsoft all the time at my work. So I have
that's one thing. I used OneDrive back in the day, and I tell you, it was so messed up when it comes to how their versioning worked. Especially, I think the transition from SkyDrive to OneDrive. So this is a while back, but they totally screwed up their versioning, and it was a mess. Like it deleted parts of certain files, and ever since then I was like, I hate OneDrive. I will never use it. I've sworn it off for like the past 5 years. But I do have like 1 terabyte of free storage there because I have Office 365.
I'm an Office 365 user at work too, and let me tell you what a piece that is to me.
While 365 is like a lot like weird to use, and it's problematic. It is,
and really, everybody's getting away from the desktop client, and moving to Office 360 to the web client, and I hate it. It just,
but it also is quite in some ways quite cheap, because
that's why they're doing it. Yeah, they're
6 or 7
money.
users you can get. It's 6 or 7 users. I don't know how many it's right now. You get with 6 or 7 desktop clients you can have. For like $60 a month.
Yeah, but like, the web client, web Excel, they are unbearable.
Web client is free.
Yeah, so like Office 365 is kind of an interesting beast. Is a lot of it is like the return on investment or the ROI on an O365, just standard Office, is 18 months. So if you plan on keeping the same version of the Office, which I do, I would literally buy Office, install it all. But the problem with businesses is it's a huge capital expenditure. So you get around that with Office 365. So people are like, screw it. Who cares about that? We're going to probably upgrade in that time anyways. But really, most people use their same version of Office in the past for like 5 years. So
longer than that. I mean, companies were doing things like, I'm going to buy Office 2003 and run it for the next 20 years, and Microsoft doesn't want that. They want to make money off of you like every 3 years.
But those companies that want to go, as some say, with time, or they want to have latest software because they are afraid of viruses or something like that. Those companies quite benefit from O365 because they get latest version when it is released. It just makes it a lot better than every time Office is released buying a version of Office.
Well, I mean, I kind of disagree with that. Like a lot of the stuff Microsoft does, there's a lot of security holes, and like securing Windows itself and a lot of its product line from Microsoft is a huge problem and a giant job. Like I've made an entire 20-year career out of it, and I've probably scratched 20% of the actual surface. Like certain things, when you actually get into big business and you start looking at how people secure their environments, and there's some misconceptions like that. You have like IT directors that think that way, which is almost scary because there's policies like AppArmor. I'm sorry, not AppArmor, but what is it called? App Locker is what Microsoft uses. AppArmor is the Debian-based kind of version of it. But Microsoft kind of took that idea of SE Linux and AppArmor and kind of integrated that in using App Locker on Pro and up to Enterprise on Windows. And a lot of that actually gives them the ability to lock down certain aspects of Windows. So the security conscious and the big enterprises out there should be utilizing this tool, but there's just so many people in companies that just don't have a flowing IT department, someone that is really, really good at their job. And this feature almost never gets used in enterprise when they could just lock down and say, all these computers should only run these certain programs, and these programs they have these restrictions to run and stuff. So anyways.
At best, they will do GPOs and that's it.
I don't know anything about how this is managed, but is it through the group policy and the domain controller? I mean, the domain admin could do the thing you talked about, Chris, locking down apps and computers, roles and stuff.
Locking. One second. I'm gonna switch my headset. It's like couldn't quite make that out. 1 second.
Hold on. Let me boost my microphone a little bit.
Yeah.
Should be better now.
Bit lower.
A little lower than that, though. Yeah. You went a little too far on that. Okay.
I'll switch to a headset because I got it on my overhead here, and I don't want feedback happening anyways. Yeah. So it's actually coming through. 1 second. Where's my Zoom?
Let's hope it doesn't saturate now.
No, it's okay.
Nice. So I was asking, is all this stuff because it's the first time I hear about it, app locking and what you talked about before, is this configurable through group policies?
Yeah, that's totally configurable through group policy. Most people do configure it through group policy, so that's where it actually resides. If you go into, I think, computer configuration, security settings, and then you need to enable the application identifier service, and then once that service is actually enabled, it can identify certain applications, but you deploy that through GPOs. And then you'd also go in and configure, there's a sub menu in there. I forget exactly what it's called, but you click on that and then it'll show you the 3 versions of policies. You can say audit and enforce for executing executables. You can do the same. Those are basically the 2 configurable options. And then there's also for scripts. And then there's also for something else as well. I can't remember the 3rd option, but it was scripts, executables, and the one other thing as well.
Either way, it's a nice feature. I mean, I didn't know about
it. Feature. It, like I said, they basically ripped off the whole idea of SE Linux and AppArmor.
Right. It was basically SE Linux, on Windows, right?
Right.
I really, really like AppArmor. I mean, it is a very nice addition. I didn't completely trust security enforcing Linux and all this stuff, but AppArmor is different.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, getting back on some Linux-related topics, one of the big things that's kind of blowing up right now, hey Ben, is the news that Manjaro, I guess, has a sponsorship with a proprietary software project called, what is it, Free Office? Yeah, the Free Office suite, and they're going to start shipping that proprietary software on their flagship edition ISOs. And instead of LibreOffice, instead of, free and open source LibreOffice. What do we think about that? Shipping proprietary software, inferior proprietary software too, like Free Office instead of LibreOffice on their images. I'm not sure.
To be honest, I've never heard about Free Office before. I mean, I only knew Libre like everyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of Office suites out there. It's just strange. There's so many good free and open source Office suites too, that it's strange that they're going to go with a proprietary solution like Free Office. I mean, they've got a sponsorship with them, so I guess they're making a few bucks with it. But I understand the need for sponsorships, but when you alienate so many people that use Manjaro, because most of the people that use Linux, and especially something like Manjaro, are probably proponents of free and open source software. Yeah. So they got some massive backlash from this in the last couple of days, as you can imagine. So, I understand, like there's always proprietary software in every Linux distro, except for like the Libre distros of Stallman and the Free Software Foundation.
Like
those
Parabola and stuff.
Yeah, but you're always going to have some proprietary drivers, especially Wi-Fi drivers, if you want your machines to work. Like you have to put some proprietary software, but the thing over the years with Linux is we never put proprietary software on these images unless absolutely necessary, unless there was no free alternative. LibreOffice is a fantastic free alternative. Why are you taking that out and putting this proprietary garbage on the image? So,
well, the answer to that must be, well, the funding, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it hurts them in the end, though. I can't imagine this is going to be positive for them. I'm going to actually link to the discussion that's going on the Manjaro forums right now. And there's some of that. Now, briefly show it on screen here. I've got the browser. Anyway, the announcement of some kernel updates, the newest versions of Haskell, etc., etc. Oh, and then just thrown in here, additionally, we ship FreeOffice by default. This is possible because we partnered up with SoftMaker, the company behind FreeOffice, and then from that, a lot of negative responses in that thread, and then there is a thread on r/Linux on Reddit that, last I looked, had like 800 replies. None of them are positive. So,
as expected.
Yeah, on Reddit it is, because that's the environment, right? It's not a lot of positivity on Reddit.
Ain't that the truth?
It's not a friendly place. Anyway, yeah, so I don't know. I expect after a few days, Manjaro may adjust this position and still ship LibreOffice, maybe offer a installer of FreeOffice, maybe on the ISO, but don't ship with FreeOffice already there.
So FreeOffice, it's free, but it's proprietary.
Yeah, it's closed source software. Yeah, it's not the name.
Source.
Yeah, don't be fooled
Free.
by the name. Yeah,
I don't understand.
Yeah, right.
What?
Yeah.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah.
It looks like just a Microsoft ripoff. They took the names and almost like their icon set and their ribbons.
Mm-hmm. That's another thing that's kind of weird about it. And the Manjaro guys say this is going to be a good thing for its users because it should have the best compatibility with Microsoft Office. I don't know.
I can kind of see it. Everyone knows that I'm not a huge fan of LibreOffice just because it's so foreign to me, because I've been a Microsoft Office user for, I don't know, 25 years. So that's why it's just what I know. And I need to just break myself of it and learn the FOSS component or alternative, like I did with GIMP when I finally got off Photoshop and moved to GIMP. But Office is one of the things that just is constantly a problem with me, where I've literally just gone to the point where I'm using Microsoft Office online in Linux, and that's messed up. I hate using browser-based offices, and but I mean, that's just me coming from that stuck in a rut, and I need to get over it, but I just haven't yet. I don't know why. It's a problem that I have.
Yeah, and they have learning curves, like LibreOffice and GIMP that you mentioned. They have big learning curves. Like when I first moved to Linux and started playing with GIMP, man, 12 years in, I'm just now getting kind of comfortable with GIMP. I mean, it's
but it's the same with the proprietary alternative, the Photoshop, of course. But Photoshop is hard.
Yeah, if you don't know it, absolutely, it would be the same. You know, it's just people get used to what they know. Yeah.
To be honest, I'm checking it out through the AUR, the FreeOffice.
FreeOffice, yeah.
I'm gonna install it and see what it's about.
Yeah, and in the chat, Farron was asking, well, isn't Manjaro the distribution that pre-installs links to Office Online?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of distros that do that. I don't like it when they do the links to proprietary software, like here's the installer for Chrome and Steam and all this other stuff. I get why some distributions do that, but it's not installed on your system yet. If you want it, here's a link to it. I get that, but don't load down the ISO with a bunch of proprietary stuff, especially when there's open solutions. Yeah. Like, don't put Google Chrome on your ISO when Chromium and Firefox and a million other things are out there. So.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I totally understand the stance of that. I think it's really giving the user the option during the installer, I think would be the best alternative. If you say, hey, this is what I think most Windows users coming to Linux would like, that's fine, but you need to make sure you don't alienate your current user base, which let's face it, it's mostly Linux users. And just saying, hey, here's a whole bunch of proprietary crap where those that have been on Linux for a year, hell, I'm definitely in that camp now where I'm like, okay, is there a FOSS alternative to this program? I don't want to go to proprietary right out of the gate because I've seen how good having open source programs are now, and it's something I want to encourage. But yeah, no, I think they definitely need to give an option, not just here you go, this pre-installed, it's what you should use kind of mentality.
I think what's going to hurt, I'm sorry, I think what's going to hurt Manjaro in this case though is the proprietary software they put in FreeOffice is not a good product itself, as far as it's not better than the free solutions. Is the problem.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially the Arch-based distros user base, they're not by majority newbies. I mean, newcomers from or people that used to use Windows. I don't know. Maybe Under was an example of a noob-friendly distribution, but I don't know. Manjaro is kind of advanced, isn't it?
It can be. It's easy to install. It's more advanced to maintain because it's rolling.
Yeah.
You're going to have minor little breakages that people that have been around for a while can fix, no problem. Like if I update my system and there's a problem with my video driver, I reboot and there's a black screen. Oh, the world is ending for a brand new user, right? He just broke his system. I have to reinstall. For anybody that's been around Linux for a while, you're going to realize there's a problem with my video driver. Drop to a prompt, install the right driver, reboot, you're back on track. But these are the kind of minor little hiccups that we could fix if somebody new from Windows that they just don't know about because, you know, they're brand new.
Yeah, and I think like what happened with me when I was on Manjaro and I had like almost a month stint was mainly that I was updating through PalMac, which I know is a big no-no really. And I wanted to do it how I think a Windows user or a newbie would do it. So I would just constantly just update almost every single day, installing stuff from the AUR in that. And of course, with that, it broke. I mean, the whole distro just wouldn't boot after a crash right in the middle of it updating. I think I was on KDE in Manjaro, and it crashed right in the middle of the upgrade using PalMac. And that's why I'm like, hey, if you're on an Arch-based distribution, use Terminal when you're doing your updates. Always do Pacman updates. And then if you want to update from the AUR, you can go ahead and review all those independently and update them. But I'm not a huge fan of the whole update everything all at the same time when it comes to Arch.
Yeah. And to be fair, Arch, they don't recommend PAMAC. They don't recommend any GUI update tool. If you read the Arch wiki, you know, it's install at the command line, use Pacman. That's it. You know, don't don't use the software center.
I didn't even know there was a graphical front end for Pacman.
Well, probably most Manjaro users and Antergos users and Arco users, they probably don't use PAMAC, even though those things probably are pre-installed on all of them. Many users probably don't even know it's there.
Yeah, I think on KDE-based spins, they use Octopi, which is almost like the PAMAC equivalent, but yeah.
What's up, Ben? I see.
Included on my Arch distro Hackman is because, you know, I want to give people something easy and then migrate to the terminal.
So you're putting PAMAC on your distro, Ben?
I already did.
Okay.
But I still discourage it because to me it's kind of a clutch that people use it. But if they want to, that's their choice. But I don't really.
Terminal gives you good output. It'll tell you exactly what the problem is and how to fix it. Sometimes it'll even give you the command to run to fix it, where typical GUI tools often don't.
Yeah, that's why I don't. That's why I don't like using Panac amps in the time. Is solely because it doesn't really give you a valid description of what happened if a package doesn't install or whatever.
No.
But,
It's like
by the
the
way, I've successfully lived in LFS for a whole month or two.
you've lived in Linux from scratch for a whole month.
Yes, Darren.
Without
What did you?
Yeah, I was going to say, Linux from scratch doesn't have a package manager bin.
Exactly. That was going to be my next question. What strategy did you use for maintaining packages?
Sorry?
I mean, the LFS guys, there's LFS Beyond or something like that.
Yeah. I did actually manage to make Steam work.
Okay.
Steam on Linux from scratch.
Nice.
Actually, it's multi-lib as well.
Wow.
It was a living hell. Don't get me wrong.
Why are you torturing yourself? You know, it's just an educational project, Linux from scratch. You're not supposed to live in it.
It's not easy living in it, believe me.
Well, of course not.
Put in a second hard drive in the laptop and just...
You're just maintaining all the dependency issues yourself? You got it like a spreadsheet with all the dependencies or something?
No, I didn't go that far, but yeah.
Oh, Lord.
It's not... Yeah, Chris, I would not recommend it to you because it's...
I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. What are you talking about to Chris? I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it to Das Gregor. For those of you not familiar with Das Gregor, he actually has a bunch of Slackware and Gentoo and Linux from scratch content, and he tried to live in Linux from scratch. I don't think he made it a month before he gave up because he just couldn't make it work.
Oh man.
What about
But yeah, I agree. No Linux from scratch for Chris or for myself. Maybe Gentoo.
The worst part is that he would have been hounding you to build a Linux from scratch.
Ooh, no. Mm-mm.
I could see you doing it, Derek. No way.
Yeah, I don't want to record it. I mean, it would take days. And then the editing, the editing process, and like, come on, and nobody would be interested in that video.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how many people are interested in watching a Linux from scratch installation?
Yeah,
I think the people don't realize, like, it's same with like Gentoo. Like, you see it all the time. I get it all the time in the comments on my channel, and it's so funny because like I did a live stream at Gentoo, and I was like hacking around. It was going really well, and then came like the kernel compile.
Right.
And then, like, literally everybody falls asleep. And you're just like, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, backflips on stream to entertain people while it compiles?
And some people, now, I did a Gentoo installation. I pre-recorded it, though. People wanted me to do it on a live stream, and I refused. I was like, you realize how bad that would be? Because I start compiling GCC, and now I'm going to go, and I'm going to leave for 2 hours and go out to dinner, maybe catch a movie, and then come back when that's done. I was like, no one's going to watch that.
No. No, I think everyone just wanted to see if I could get to the compile. And then at that point, I was just like, all right, well, guys, I'm going to go to sleep now.
And then I think people want to see it live to see if people want to see it live to see if your machine stutters while it's doing all that compiling while you're trying to record. Just record it and edit it and cut out all the...
Oh man.
Yeah. Watching code fly across the screen for the purpose of what?
And a lot of people, it seems like in the past month, a lot of Linux YouTubers have been trolled into doing Gentoo on a live stream. I'm proud to say I was never one of those guys that got trolled, but EB, English Bob, got trolled into doing it. Zeb got trolled into doing it. Chris got trolled into doing it. I've seen like 3 others in the past 2 weeks. It's,
I haven't been trolled into doing it.
Yeah. Seems like every day I come home and check my subscription. Somebody's streaming. I click on it and I just see compiling. I just like, what are you guys doing?
It's a disease.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it. I didn't do it on my YouTube. I knew better. I was like, I'll throw it on my Twitch where I throw like all my crap where I'm like, you know what? Let's just try this out and do something wacky. And I threw it on my Twitch channel. So luckily I didn't have like 400 people sitting there watching compile screen.
After you've done all the compiling, how is it Gen 2 better than any other distro?
Oh, that's a lengthy question.
Yeah, I would say like the short end of that would be you can actually choose what goes into the kernel. So that's kind of powerful. You have all the options during the actual compile process of Gen 2. So if you had your machine do just one specific thing, you could have a lot lighter weight kernel. I would say it's probably the number one. I mean, what do you think, Ben?
Well, not only that, but you can specify what goes in your packages, what doesn't go in your packages.
It's the use flags that really.
It's the use flags that really give Gen 2 that backbone. Yeah.
Average Linux user wouldn't matter to them.
The average Linux user wouldn't care about use flags and all that. Right.
They just want their shit to work.
Yeah. To be honest, DT wouldn't care about use flags. Just give me all of it. Right?
But it's really the power users, the guy who's wanting complete control of their system that way.
And some of it too is if you have weird hardware, like I think you can still compile for 486 on Gen 2, which is something you can't do on any other distro that I can think of.
And Gen 2 still has 32-bit options, kind of like LFS. Yeah.
Right. Where Arch has one ISO, it's 64-bit, it's x86 64, and that's all Arch has.
They except for their unofficial 32-bit supported thing.
Well, that's a third party. That's a community port of. Yeah, it's not the Arch guys, but yeah, there's people that have ported Arch to 32-bit and to ARM. There's a 32.
And to ironically the Herd kernel, the GNU kernel.
Yeah, the Herd.
Yeah,
the
Herd kernel.
Piece of crap.
Yeah, people keep wanting me to install something with the Herd kernel, and
that kernel is really, really,
what
really
is that?
Bad.
The Herd kernel is the
GNU's official kernel. Basically, it was started before Linux kernel development started. They said it's gonna be the business. Everyone needs that, and even after Linux was created, people still said Herd will be better. Look where Linux is, and I'm still no. And basically, we still call Herd a piece of crap that doesn't work.
Yeah. So it's basically Stallman and the GNU guys, the GNU project. They had all the GNU utilities, but they needed a kernel to make all this work. So they started working on their own kernel called Herd back in the late 80s. And Linus Torvalds started working on a kernel in the early 90s, and within a year, he had one up and working. Everybody started using it. After about 3 years of Linux, people realized Herd was never going to work. I think even the Herd developers realized it was never going to work, even though they keep developing it.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to use it. So
I believe it got into usable state a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the only decent kernel besides the official, the stable Linux kernel is FreeBSDs. I've tried it. It works kind of okay. I don't know if I would recommend it for desktop usage.
No,
but
never.
It's really, really fast. The way it handles hard disk I/O is great.
Yeah. BSD, I'm sure it's a great server operating system.
Yeah,
if you've ever tried to put it on real hardware, the hardware support is not there because it's all handled by the Linux kernel. For example, in our situation, where
I knew a person that uses BSD, and it's basically like everything is like Arch, basically, or even worse. Basically, somewhere between Arch and Gen 2.
Yeah, you have a lot of command line stuff, but the problem is not just command line stuff. The problem is like FreeBSD is like Linux was 15 years ago as far as on the desktop. Like it's so far behind on some of what it supports as far as on the desktop.
Yeah, I'd agree with that statement on the desktop because I think a lot of people are like, well, why don't you try FreeBSD? And I actually like FreeBSD almost better on the server side, depending on what the application is, because its IP stack is better than Linux. Let's be real. I mean, it does a better job with handling network traffic than the Linux kernel does. However, it is
And-
definitely not meant for desktop users. So it doesn't mean just because it does certain applications better, like companies like Dropbox, Netflix, they all use FreeBSD servers for a lot of their content delivery because it is extremely efficient. And like my FreeNAS box obviously runs FreeBSD and it does a very, very good job. And a lot of people are like, why you use that? And it's usually a combination between how efficient it is with the actual network and then also the ZFS that's built into FreeNAS.
That's why a lot of people love it, especially on servers, ZFS.
Yes, I was going to mention ZFS because it's one of the reasons that it's all hard disk and network I/O is good, especially the stuff you can do with ZFS. I mean, application.
ZFS is the best.
Wow, it's yes.
Especially for NAS and the server type, network server types.
But as somebody that's installed FreeBSD a couple of times on desktops and laptops, when you install FreeBSD, say on a tower, and you go and plug in USB devices and they're not recognized, that's the kind of stuff that you typically don't have to worry about with Linux. Or you put it on a laptop and there's no networking, and then you got to struggle to get Wi-Fi and everything. Most Linux distributions these days, pretty easy to get up and running.
I could not get FreeBSD to recognize any ext4 file systems. Even when you go in and try to compile it, it didn't compile. So
on my previous machine, I put GhostBSD on my machine, and I never made a video during those 3 days because I never had working audio. At no point during those 3 days did I have a working microphone. And I tried everything. I went to forums and I plugged in every command and installed various libraries. And after a while, I realized this ain't gonna work.
I'm surprised you don't have a stream box there, DT.
No, I don't. No, I should. Yeah.
Yeah. I even installed a Apple-looking theme on my Linux from scratch with XFCE.
Yeah. I guess I could have recorded inside GhostBSD with no sound and maybe just put subtitles or dubbed it in after the fact, like you do on those like Chinese movies where it's all dubbed in.
Okay. Just do a Lundu, go ahead and monochrome it, and just black and white, and then just do the subtitles while looking at the screen. Oh, that would be awesome.
Oh, geez, that's terrible. I'd rather not.
ZFS, I can say one word about it. Ubuntu 1910.
Well, Ubuntu has been trying to get ZFS for a while, forever, because there's some licensing issues because of the BSD license. The BSD license is not really compatible with the GPL license, so they're worried. Corporations like Canonical and Red Hat, the reason they haven't kind of jumped on ZFS as quick as they is because of legal stuff, right? They don't want to get sued. So once they get the okay from the lawyers,
but ironically, the Linux version of ZFS is supposedly actually better than the BSD version.
Yeah.
Supposedly, what I heard is basically the implementation is more clean and better.
I was looking at the OpenZFS project, and it's come a long way in the past couple of years. I don't know if it's better per se because the FreeBSD thing has almost I think it's up to almost 20 years of development at this point. Not quite 20, but it's been going for a while. And I've actually used it in an enterprise environment using an Oracle appliance, which runs, I believe, FreeBSD in the ZFS all the way. And it's pretty damn reliable. I mean, it's extreme. I never had any issue with any of them. And it
could have something to do too with manpower as far as the development behind it. Obviously, there's so many more people working on Linux than BSD. So if we could get ZFS on Linux working, there'd be a ton of people contributing to it. And I'm sure it would be fantastic.
The whole ZFS on Linux project is basically, I hear it's better as how it is made. It's actually better than some BSD are actually looking into actually porting ZFS on Linux to BSD.
Big Pod, I know you've got some Linux servers. Are you using ZFS on?
I used to use on a network server till it stopped working. I used to use ZFS, yeah, on Ubuntu.
Until it stopped working. That's
Till-
not a
till the
ringing
server-
endorsement. Right?
Server stopped working, not ZFS. Server stopped working. But it was
Till I
all
lost
done.
all my data I was using.
I've been using
Yeah. I knew it will die, so I already moved the data because server itself was a bit of a wonky old crap.
That's the thing about like ZFS when I well actually it was how FreeNAS was built, but when I actually switched it out, like I switched from an Intel Core 2 Duo with 8 gigs of DDR3 over to an AMD A10 with 16 gigs of DDR4, completely different architecture, completely different everything. And all I took to switch it over to that motherboard were the hard drives, plugged it in, it booted up. Now, that's not just ZFS. That's obviously FreeNAS being able to have that versatility. But the fact I could just grab the hard disk and plug it in and have it work identically in both places was insane to me. But, I mean, I've seen ZFS, you know, you can look up YouTube videos of this where people like literally are shocking and just completely killing it. I think Lawrence PC Systems did a YouTube video about it. And it was amazing to see how resilient all of that is because so many people rely on RAID and RAID sucks. I mean, as a professional that have done this for 20 years, RAID's horrible. Like you have a RAID controller go out, that is a complete nightmare.
Yeah.
You have to find that hardware and replace especially that hardware because it's
exactly the same and then rebuild the RAID and it still might not work correctly.
Yeah.
Chris, what kind of protocol are you using to connect to the box? SMB or NFS or what?
Right now, I have a multitude of protocols. One, I use SMB just for compatibility across Windows. So I have a mixed environment, Windows and Linux here, as my wife still uses Windows, and the kids still have some games. Like my daughter has Roblox and some other stuff that pretty much uses Windows. And then everything I'm running is Linux. And then I also have iSCSI, which I go ahead and connect to all my XCP-ng virtualized servers here. So I'm working right now on a project where I'm spinning up every single major Linux distro on those and having full images so then I can just switch between them at will. And if I need to grab something from one distro, I can just go ahead and spin up that box and just have it. So that's what I'm going now, but it'll all be stored on the FreeNAS server, and all the virtualized stuff will be iSCSI, where it's just directly attached hard drives, basically oversimplification. But that's kind of what I'm running here, and it's awesome.
How much storage do you have on your NAS currently?
Right now, I only have about 12 terabytes. Okay. But I actually got
only
yeah. I actually was working with Synology and going back and forth in emails for about the past 3 months. And I finally got them to send me a box that has like 30 terabytes of storage. And I'm looking forward to doing that review. But I've gone back and forth with them forever to just kind of get that finally to do a Synology a box, because it's Linux based, and I'm curious to see what all I can do. I'll probably do the official review, and then I'm definitely going to be hacking around in that box and really tinkering. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's one thing I may do at some point is get me a NAS, because I currently don't have anything as far as any kind of local backup or local storage here.
What are you doing for your redundancy with your YouTube videos? Are you uploading those somewhere else?
Amazon. Yeah, Amazon. I got a S3 bucket that I put it all in. Good. So if Amazon or if YouTube ever bans me for whatever reason, you know, I've all my videos are out there and I can just put them somewhere else. So
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, YouTube could go away one day, because I know Google doesn't actually profit from YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, they may one day just
Google directly doesn't profit from YouTube. They profit from the ads, but that isn't actually that much from YouTube. They more profit from websites. Well,
the cost of doing all of this, can you imagine their storage? I mean, it's gotta be insane.
Yeah, right? Petabytes and petabytes of data. I couldn't imagine how big that is.
And the transcode servers, that must be a lot of encoding servers.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had those days where I upload like a 10-minute video and it's still processing an hour later. So, you know, their servers are just melting down.
Yeah. They have,
depending on the time of day.
I don't know how many thousand hours a day it's uploaded, and they additionally transcode it into their own format that is really small. I think that takes a lot of work probably.
Well, but I put all my stuff on S3 with Amazon because I figure eventually Amazon will create a competitor to YouTube, and I'll already be over there. So I'm just
yeah. When it comes to actually transcoding on YouTube, it's really interesting. Like you actually look at it, and obviously, like I think every content creator knows to make like MP4 with AAC audio, but also there's like bitrate considerations you need to look and take into effect. Too many YouTubers I see just go to the actual max quality, and they should be limiting a lot of their bitrate. If it's like 1080p, it needs to not go over 10 megabits per second because you're killing yourself. It'll just overloads their transcode servers.
No, they for 1080p they recommend up to 12 megabit per second. On normal 1080p 60 fps. If it's 60 HDR, it's 15 megabits. I know for 4K they do something like max 80. That's their recommended, but but for 4K it's actually not that insane. But I've seen when going from Pro codecs to MP4 that you must do something like 25 megabits to actually even retain some of the quality on 1080p. I've seen that. Especially the details like water and stuff like that. When we were like in school, we were recording. We had recordings of basically they were going with a raft down the river, and the water was splashing, all that. So basically droplets of water. If we wanted it to look perfect, we had to do something like 30 megabits per second to get it from the Pro codec or whatever they were using to somewhat usable MP4.
From what I understood, if they look at the resolution, their transcode servers automatically cull down that bit rate to 10 megabits per second. So that's why I like always upload with the certain settings. And usually my transcodes take anywhere between about 5 to 10 minutes to transcode about 10 to 15 minutes of video.
If I do YouTube video, I will normally transcode it myself to 15 megabits, just so I have a bit of overhead for myself when I store it, and that's it. Just so it's a bit of a higher quality than on YouTube anyway, so I have a bit of overhead.
And my biggest issues with YouTube transcoding and processing and everything is the live streams. Depending on the length of live stream, they handle shorter live streams fine, but I've noticed don't go over 2 hours because sometimes the quality of those streams after they process it just looks like garbage.
And they will take a lot longer for about 2 hour streams to transcode than 1 hour streams. That's what I heard.
Yeah, and usually you like have a spin up at the start, and then you have to edit it and chop that part, so it'll have a bunch of garbage at the front of your stream, and it takes a day before it'll even clean that up.
Oh yeah, a full day sometimes. Yeah,
and I'm like, oh Lord. So yeah, I don't even like doing live streams on YouTube a lot because it's just as good as YouTube is for a lot of the other video, it sucks for live streams. I mean, the interface is horrible. The chat interface, the APIs, all of it is just crap, especially when comparison to Twitch. Twitch does such a better job with live streaming because I've done both. And I'm just like, good Lord, I'm afraid to play a game on YouTube because out of the 3 game live streams I've done, 2 of them got content ID'd. And I was just like, oh, hell, whatever. I'm done with that. So I don't even play games on YouTube live streams, which obviously I don't think any of my audience really cares that much. But I still like live streaming games.
Well, yeah, there's some, I don't live stream that much, but there are some things you just have to live stream. Like if you want to interact with the community, you have to live stream.
One of them is not Gen 2. Hell no.
Yeah, don't live stream Gen 2. That's not what a live stream is for.
Yeah, or have a backup plan or some other entertainment options as soon as it hits the compile process.
Yeah, Chris, speaking of games, this is the Xbox controller I was telling you about. It's a Bluetooth one. And getting this thing to work on Linux is a nightmare.
Yeah. Well, be glad you got the actual Bluetooth one because you actually have a shot at getting it working. I have a first-gen Xbox One controller that has a little wireless dongle, and that thing doesn't work at all.
Dude, that is a bitch to get working.
Yeah, I gave up. I was like, screw it. I'm just going to get some Xbox 360 ones. And guess what? You plug it in and they just work.
I actually have a ported one of those that I was lucky enough that my workout trainer gave me years ago. Never had a problem getting it to work in Linux. Never.
Yep.
Well, it's Microsoft for you.
This
Microsoft.
This one does have, it can work, but I have to keep running a script every time I want it to log into my computer.
What?
I ain't kidding you.
It's like the Bethesda launcher of hardware.
Yeah.
But he's using Linux from scratch, so I mean.
Well, it also happens on non-source based distros.
Some way it isn't actually meant. The Xbox controller isn't meant to be run on Linux, but we should understand that. It is an Xbox controller that is used on a console that probably uses Windows of some sort.
The good thing is, after using Linux from scratch, when Ben finally goes back to Gen 2, it's going to be like, oh, this is so easy. I'm so glad to be back.
That's actually the case. I'm dual booting it, actually. Actually,
somebody in the chat was mentioning that
machine that has LFS and Gen 2, I also have a Manjaro and a Mac partition as well. So it's
just in the chat here, Gnostic in the chat was mentioning about Twitch. It's getting weird with political correctness lately. I don't use Twitch. I know Chris sometimes does stuff on Twitch. You had any problems with Twitch and their political correctness, or have they been taking people down?
So like it's weird. Like I hear a lot of this, and I think a lot of it's over sensationalized. It's just kind of how content creation works. A lot of times people play up something just to get the clicks, and I know I'm guilty of it on occasion, but it's one of those things that I don't really think it's that big a deal. Like if you're in a far right or far left spectrum when it comes to politics, like all these channels getting demonetized on YouTube, kind of the same thing. It's one of those things they have to almost take them down, or at least not monetize them. And for Twitch, they make all their money in ad stuff, and they are definitely for profit, because to get to partner level in Twitch, that's where the actual creator will actually start getting ad revenue. All of the people, like probably 90% of the content on Twitch is all affiliate and below. So Twitch is taking all of the ad revenue, and everyone's playing these ads. So what happens is, if you get like a politics or something that advertisers won't like, Twitch errs on the side of caution, and probably even more so than YouTube, and just completely will take that stream down if it's something controversial. And YouTube is just basically will demonetize it, which I think is a good way to actually approach that, because demonetizing a far political view is a good thing, because advertisers don't want to be seen or associated with that type of content. And that makes sense to me.
Logical. Some of this is overblown, I think, as far as people. I hear this all the time, that YouTube is taking down anybody that has any kind of right-wing leaning views or whatever. But when I search around on YouTube, I see all kinds of conservative talk shows and news and podcasts, and I'm sure some people do get demonetized, some people do get banned, but they're probably doing other things than just expressing whatever political opinions they happen to be.
Yeah, and I think also in that, like, I see too many people point out like it's right wing or left wing, and I honestly think it's indiscriminatory, because you look at Fox Media, which is extremely left wing. They pretty much got demonetized everywhere, and everybody, all the crazy left was like, hey, it's demonetized. And then you got like the crazy right too, where the same thing happens to like their favorite channel, and that channel's like, well, we got to go to a different platform, and then everyone's all up in arms because that's happened to their creator. I totally get it. It's not like that, but again, it's overblown. I think a lot of YouTube creators were spoiled.
Yeah.
And I also, on social media, I keep getting people talking about how Facebook takes people down and Twitter takes people down. I've been getting people, because I have my Mastodon account, and a lot of people follow me over on Mastodon, message me, Mastodon's no good because some of the people that run these Mastodon instances are far left or far right, and they take people down on their servers. Move to a different server.
Yeah.
It's not centralized like Facebook. I mean, if Facebook is against you, there's nothing you can do, but you could even start your own Mastodon server. I don't know why people are complaining about decentralized things like,
Like
Mastodon. Just
Ubuntu
go
has their own
somewhere else.
server, for example.
Yeah, exactly. So
And everybody who's working at Canonical has their account there.
And
I get a lot of people messaging me about Mastodon and other decentralized things. They banned me over there. They're no good. They're right wing, left wing. I was
There are
like, man,
people-
just go somewhere else. Just go to a different server. Quit crying about it, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people just don't understand Mastodon and the Fediverse and how all that works with the different nodes. And that's exactly right. You just pick a different node. I mean, the only issue with a different node is some of them aren't as populated, so you don't have a really active feed, so you have to go out of your way to subscribe to all your people. But other than that, once you actually curated your feed, it's awesome. You don't get crap in there like Twitter does. Like, I popped on the Twitter app on my phone, and you get like, hey, what does the Saved by Bellcast look like today? And you click on it, and you're like, oh, holy hell! It's like 30 pages of hitting next, and they don't even show you the picture of what they look like. I was kind of
the best decision of my life was leaving Twitter. Man, that thing,
I never
in a lot of
spoke
ways, it's
on
worse than the crap on Facebook. It's worse than the crap we talked about on Reddit. Twitter is nothing but a giant hate machine.
Yeah.
And that's
That's full of hate.
I'm thinking about closing down my Twitter personally.
Just like some YouTube comments.
you can't have a rational conversation on Twitter because of the format. Is the problem?
Yeah. It's all just short form, and you can't relay a conscious thought. It's all just fragmented all over the place. Things are taken out of context. That's why a lot of times I'll go into like a DM and be like, hey, I'll call you. Like, I had a reporter that was gonna do or wanted to do like a hit piece on me or something because I said something bad about Clear Linux, I think it was. And I talked to him and I was like, hey, let's just call each other and actually chat. I don't mind. Or we can get on a live stream. I don't care either way, whatever you want to do. And after talking to the guy, he was like, okay, well, I completely misunderstood that. And I was like, hey, I understand. And I was wrong in certain areas. And I was like, hey, let me post a correction. And then I went ahead and made that the top comment of the Clear Linux and stipulated where I was factually wrong in parts of the video. And that was fine. But yeah, a lot of it is just overblown. Too many people think just being too, not able to actually articulate their thoughts.
Evil Gnome, for example, is a great example of the last couple of days or week.
Mm-hmm.
The Evil Gnome?
Yeah.
Evil Gnome. Yeah. First of all, the name is totally bad.
Dark One Linux actually did a video on that about people doing that, and I actually saw that video. I commented it, and I was like, nah, I better not. I'm going to take that comment down because, he definitely went after me and a couple other people in that video, but I get it. But
you could have commented. I doubt Matt would have.
He would
treated you rough.
Yeah.
We're talking about matching more.
Guys, if I may, a completely irrelevant question, but it just came to mind. Would you buy a Linux phone? The Librem 5, for example.
Yeah.
Would I buy one? Yeah, absolutely.
No.
I think too many people are actually burnt by the Ubuntu Touch. I think too many people have that in their mind. And I'm curious to see. I would want it to be done right, and I don't know if that's going to happen. So that's where everyone's like.
Well, it's never been done right. I mean, it's been done right, but nobody ever went out and bought it en masse. I mean, we had Yala and Sailfish and WebOS. I mean, we had all these Linux mobile operating systems and devices, and none of them ever panned out.
Yeah.
So
hell, I think even Nokia made one too.
Mobile.
Yeah. Even Nokia made an open source phone, but it didn't really work. In my opinion, until some big cell phone manufacturer makes an open source phone, I won't even care.
Yeah,
to be told.
I don't know, because
on some level, I do trust brand. And
I would take
something like a phone. It is really important to me that
I would take an Android phone.
Have a support and everything.
I would take an Android phone with some of the crap ripped out of it. I hate like Verizon and all these companies that give you a phone and they have all these pre-installed apps you can't even uninstall. They've got you locked in to things like Facebook and all these cloud syncing services, and I don't want Gmail. Get all that crap off my phone.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that besides, I mean, with the exception of Huawei, every other company is kind of producing rootable phones. So you always have the option to root.
Actually, Huawei's are quite rootable.
No.
Yeah.
How?
They even have unlock bootloaders, or you can unlock it really.
Oh, no. Since 6 months ago, they stopped making unlockable bootloaders. They encrypt the bootloader and they don't even give you the key anymore. Unlike Xiaomi.
On my phone, Mate 20 Lite, I unlocked the bootloader like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but that yes, because this was produced before they made that decision.
Probably. I know that
right now
I could do it.
Actually, yeah. Like in America here, they lock you into certain contracts, and based on that, if you go buy a phone in a Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, you name it, if you actually go buy it in a store, that bootloader will be locked on every single phone that you can buy in there. It doesn't matter where it is. It's totally messed up. That's why I was like, hey, you're better off just paying money directly to the manufacturer and getting it from them. That way you can unlock the bootloader, load your custom ROM, strip out all that crap, do like Lineage OS or something.
And then
even if I buy it from the what is it called, the provider, I have ability to unlock my bootloader and do any SIM card, anything I want.
Are you in Europe? Big Bob?
Europe. Yeah, I'm Europe.
That's what I thought. Man. It ain't like that in America.
It ain't.
You're not getting an unlocked phone in a store in the US. No.
Yeah. The thing is that I used to be an Android guy. I used to upload the kernels next day and stuff. But I switched to Apple recently because of I read the paper, and Landuk did a video about it. The privacy and location-based stuff that they're sending and uploading in iOS versus Android. I mean, Android was 100 times more than the iOS.
That we know of.
Wait. Landuk broke the story that Google is spying on us?
Yeah, in my opinion, Landuk.
Why wasn't I out front on that story?
In my opinion, Landuk isn't a good source for anything.
But still, he based it on a paper, and on a paper that I actually read and I actually believe. You can always do the test. I don't know, put your phone in your network, do a Wireshark analysis, and you can find that out yourself. But I don't know. I haven't found anything on my iPhone yet. Any private packets or encrypted packets that I don't recognize. But you never know.
What you don't know, it's in iOS.
Yeah, I heard like the baseband is actually kind of not segregated out, and I think that's what like Librem, the Librem 5 phone was trying to do, is kind of separate the two, so it couldn't snoop. Where all these other phones, it's very easy for people to get a hold or a backdoor into it. So I don't know how all that's going to play out, but I hope it's really awesome. It looks, I love the idea of it, but right now I don't think anybody has any privacy. And I had a buddy of mine that actually had some really crazy stuff happen to him, and it scared the hell out of me, but at the same time, I'm glad it worked out for him. But he basically went into this hotel, and it was in like western Texas, almost the middle of nowhere. But apparently, Mexican cartel like moved into that area and threatened. He's kind of a bombastic guy, and he can rub people the wrong way. I love him to death, but he definitely will let you know how he's feeling. And he got to this hotel at like midnight, went up to his room. It just like reeked of smoke and a whole bunch of just nastiness. And he came back down. He was like, hey, this isn't going to work, man. And the guy gave him a bunch of stuff, and he basically told him off. And then he started getting texts of people like getting beheaded and all this other crazy stuff. And he was like, what the hell?
Holy crap.
And he ended up going to his local law enforcement. They're like, oh, it's just somebody messing with you. Just ignore it. And then he was like, no, I'm not. And he actually contacted, I think, Homeland Security here in the States and sent them the text. And somehow got a hold of them. And they were like, actually, these aren't in circulation. This is a real threat. and they just took his number, and he's like, do you want me to send you anything else from my phone? And they're like, no, we already have it, and we already have everything from this phone as well. And then they were able to actually track where all that going.
Yeah.
Like that. He said it was done in literally minutes. How fast they were able to track everything. That's the level of non-privacy we have.
It's a cell phone network.
But on a cell phone.
Google problem. It's cell phone problem. Even if it's Apple, whatever it is.
That's scary. But at the same time, I'm glad he got taken care of because they were able to.
If you have a phone, you have a personal tracking device.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy how fast
it probably didn't help that these were big time Mexican drug dealers that were sending this
because
they were already being watched.
Judge, and he just wrote a piece of paper, and they could deal with everything they wanted.
Because I'm sure the FBI and DEA were already looking at this phone, and right?
Yeah, I'm sure it was already on their radar.
The source was already under investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we are glad that he came out of it intact, so thank God.
Yeah, it was pretty wild when he told me. I almost was like, are you fucking kidding me? And he's like, no, man, we got a police escort at our house right now while we move. God. And I was like, holy shit. And I was like, all right, I don't believe you. Let's go check this out. And sure enough, there's a police car sitting out of his house. I was like, all right, well, that's a very convincing lie if he did that, because holy shit, that's amazing. But yeah, I mean, it was scary though to me that level of surveillance and how quickly it was done.
Yeah, they can basically access any phone that is in the network, and even if it's turned off, it has a battery in. It's still connected to the network, to the secure carrier channel, something like that.
Yeah, everybody's being
watched. You can
call
911 even if you don't have a SIM card in.
Of course, if you're really concerned about privacy, you probably shouldn't be in one of those border towns, where everybody's basically being watched, right?
Yeah, if you ever driven through the DT, you're in Texas, aren't you? Or
no, I'm in Louisiana.
Louisiana. Okay, so you're close. If you ever driven down like Brownsville or any of that around there, you'll go through and there's these giant checkpoints where they have literally like 20 cameras at all angles. As you drive through, they like are flashing and going through, and they'll just check and stop cars at random and go through all their luggage. It's weird. Me and my family actually went down to South Padre for a family vacation, and driving back, we hit like 2 of those different checkpoints, and that was, well within like a couple hours within, from the Mexican border. And I was like, holy crap, that's crazy how much technology is in each one. But
yeah. And you say it's at random, but you wonder with the cameras and technology, and if are they picking cars at random, or they have a reason? I mean, maybe facial recognition, maybe X-rays. I mean, I want to see what's in your trunk, Chris. That's what it is.
They looked at me like this white bread guy. I mean, I'm just gonna let him go, I guess. But
You didn't fit the profile, huh?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. Driving down there, and I had like a Kia Soul at the time, and my kids were like packed in there like sardines. They're like, "This poor man."
Now for security, U.S. Army can bounce a laser off you from 200 feet away and detect your heartbeat, and your heartbeat is unique to you.
What?
Yeah, but that is you have to be wearing right clothes and everything like that to actually work.
No, it'll go through your clothes.
Yeah, but if you have too many layers, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I believe three or 4 layers of clothing, and it doesn't work anymore.
So how many people are going to wear 3 or 4 layers of clothing?
It depends on what part of the world you're in. Yeah,
I was about to say, not here in Texas, man.
Yeah, it depends on.
In winter, everyone here.
Well, some winters are a little more mild than others, Big Bud.
Okay, true, but normally, I normally in winter have like 3 layers of clothing.
Yeah, I was wearing shorts and a T-shirt this past Christmas on Christmas Day, so I should tell you some of the.
But I don't want to wear shorts in winter.
Well, it was like 70 degrees, Big Pie. I mean, it was that's what I was saying. Some winters are a little worse than others. So.
Yeah, it's actually been nice this summer here in Texas. Usually it's like 100 degrees every day, and I think we haven't even hit 100 degrees yet this this summer. So it's kind of weird. I know other parts of the United States and the world have seen like the hottest summers of ever had, but here it's been like really
France
nice.
was really hot past week, like 40 degrees Celsius plus.
Yeah, it was mild. For summer this year. Yeah, it's a little milder than it has been, because typically you get that period like here where for about 2 months every day is 100 degrees or better, and you're just not seeing that right now. Like today, it might be 90 as a high today, which is unusual. This should be the hottest time of year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we're coming up on 2 hours, and I have to be going.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have to work this evening. So, yeah.
Before we go, I have a question for Chris.
Okay.
Yeah, what's up?
Chris, how is Acro Linux doing?
I love my pronunciation. Like I'll read something, I'm like, yeah, I got like mild dyslexia over here. Acro just sounds better. I'm just gonna start calling this Acro Linux.
Oh, they're gonna get on you about pronunciation. I still get I get 10 comments a week probably about GNOME every single week. There's not a week goes by.
You get hit with pronunciation in Linux really quickly.
And now I get people, man, I just love the way you pronounce Xmonad. Can you say that, like 10 times real fast? What? I had somebody the other day message me, you sound like, who did he say I sounded like? Tom Hanks. Like, what? Tom Hanks. Yeah, you seen that movie Forrest Gump? It's like, come on, man.
What? No, you were getting trolled, DT. You were getting trolled.
Right.
Definitely.
My mama says. All right, let's get a last word from everybody on our way out. Big Pod, give us a last word.
This week I got nothing.
That's unusual. You're never short on words, Big Pod.
But I made a YouTube video, and I believe it's already on.
Yeah, we got to get more content from you, Big Pod. You got to get on that.
I believe
You did?
it's already live.
Now I'll check it out this evening when I get back. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, can you link it into the Zoom chat?
Yeah,
he should be a mod. I think he can link it.
I can link it into YouTube chat. Like we just get the link.
Yeah, that's even better.
Yeah, that way everybody can go check out Big Pod's videos, subscribe. Yep. All right, George, give us a last word, sir.
Well, I'm out of words too. Well, maybe I could comment on my freshly installed darts. It's okay.
Sure.
I liked it. It's the first time I've ever, installed an Arch-based distro. We'll see. If I manage to install Oracle database, I'll keep it.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so it's okay, but from now on, you get to say, by the way, I use Arch. Go ahead. Give us that, George.
So I've got to be one of those guys, huh? By the way, I run Arch, guys.
All right. Murray, give us a last word, sir.
Okay, if you're interested in distributed computing, you want to get away from central servers, there's a bakerbrowser.com, which is an app image. You can download and run it, and it'll has a different protocol. It'll support HTTP : / but it'll also support a distributed one called DAP : // So it's a nice app image. You can download, play with it for a half hour, and then discard it. It will give you a little bit of insight. It has a built-in facility for creating your own website in JavaScript. It'll handhold you for that. So it's worth taking a look at and getting a few ideas about distribution.
Okay. What was the name of that browser?
Beaker.
Yeah, Beaker. Browser.com.
Yeah, sounds cool.
App image.
All right. Chris, give us a last word, sir.
Well, guys, thanks for just having me out. I really enjoyed just chatting with you guys. I don't really get to get like a personal interaction like this. So I'm going to try and do more of these too and get on here whenever DT posts his Zoom link, because this is awesome. I love just kind of getting the personal feel. I can see why you do it, DT.
Yeah, these are fun, yeah, because, just chatting with the community, getting, and you never know where it's going to go because, like, we don't do topics. There's no set topic, and sometimes we just get off on crazy stuff.
One time we had AI.
We were on AI for over an hour, and I think we lost most of the YouTube chat during that, but everybody that was talking, we had a blast. So.
I've got more on that for next time.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thanks, Big Pod and George, Murray, Chris. Before I go,
Thank you too.
yeah,
Yep.
we
Thanks,
need to
man.
thank the rest of the patrons, some of the folks that couldn't be here. So I want to thank each and every one of these guys, these names you see on screen. Thank you guys for supporting us. And I will see you guys next time. I don't know when I'll put out a video. I may put out something tomorrow, but don't hold me to that. No set schedule, not on this channel. All right, guys. Peace.
Later, DT.
All right.
Weirdly, this week we didn't do any bashing on JavaScript or Python.